taking into consideration of the human population worldwide is rapidly aging and the socio-economic climate is continuously shifting, a number of governments recognize the critical nature of the economic welfare of the elderly. In the context of Malaysia, the increasing trend of the aging population will eventually render the country into an aged nation by 2030. Given this expanding demographic, it demonstrates an effective management in Malaysia's healthcare system. However, additional consideration is necessary concerning the economic welfare of this elderly individual. Assalamualaikum. I hope you who are watching this will have a pleasant day ahead. I'm Nazihah, PhD student from University of Malaysia, Sabah. Thank you very much to the Kaizen Renovation Committee for having all of us here. It's a great honor to be a part of a very insightful platform where we can all share our point of interest. And before I start off with the presentation and the studies that I'm carrying out, I would like to plant an overview of my research in your thoughts and ask a question. Have you ever looked around and observed how often you see elderly people that are still working? This is not a bitter question, just something to note down. The world is in the midst of demographic changes with various degrees towards population aging. The pace of the population aging is much faster than what it was in the past. But has it ever crossed your mind whether it holds any more benefits? As such, this presentation stands as a preliminary insight of the labor participation factor among the aging population in Malaysia with attention to Kota Kinabalu, Sabah. With the population aging being established as the changes in the age structure of the population that has led to a rise in the proportion of the elderly individual, elder shares are increasing globally because of the declining fertility, increasing longevity, and the progression of the large size cohort to older ages. As of now, there are an estimation of 7% of the Malaysian population who are above the age of 65, and old age itself is not to be taken as something uncommon. There are other countries that we can take a look at. For instance, Japan in the year 2020, the population for those aged 65 years and above hold about 28% of its population. Aside from the stage of aging, the rate of aging differs significantly between each state in Malaysia. Selangor has the highest proportion, followed by Johor. Although Sabah is fast approaching behind, the age itself has its fair share of downside. The problem with this is that this particular age group is the most vulnerable in terms of maintaining a minimum standard of living. Another thought to process. Do these age groups, especially with the focus of the aging population in Malaysia or those in Kota Kinabalu, Sabah, have the financial resources that they need in order to maintain a decent standard of living? With the notion that the aging population is the most current pressing demographic challenge, it should be noted that elder shares are expanding over the world due to decreased fertility and increased lifespan, as well as the growing population size of advanced age. Corresponding to the global scenario, Malaysia, as a developing country, is seeing an increase in the number of elderly people. What about the case that the growth rate difference continues to widen? How are we expected to nurture the inevitable in the number of elderly Malaysians to outnumber the total Malaysian population? Have we considered the economic welfare of this group? A greater life expectancy among the elderly individuals presently indicates that more people are living to be older. Under those circumstances, elderly individuals can anticipate having an extended expenditure phase, which could put them under the economic burden to finance their old age and induce them to exceed their allocated income. While many researchers in which they explore the factors of elderly people's labor participation had also endeavored to examine the correlation around demographic factors and labor participation, what can we say about the factors that encourage labor participation among the elderly individual in Malaysia and its second largest state, Sabah? The country's population has grown at a rapid rate as compared with the rest of Southeast Asia's country during the previous 10 years, averaging of 1.53% per year, and Sabah is currently one of Malaysia's states that holds the largest leap of aging population from 2010 to 2020. Given the comparatively substantial population growth to date, Malaysia has undergone considerable shift in its demographic pattern. That is to say that age has become one of the demographic characteristics that plays a role among the elderly individual labor participation decision. It is important to note that in Malaysia, co-residence between elderly and young adults are still taken as something prevalent. Nearly 90% of family residents having to contain at least one senior member reported in 2016. Otherwise, co-residing can therefore be desirable for the elderly individuals as these provide convenience to work cooperatively, minimizing the risk of slipping towards economic hardship. In relation to the previous factors, existing studies had expressed that health factors are essential in evaluating an individual's labor productivity, seeing as they exert considerable influence on elderly individuals' capability and competence to execute involvement in labor. It can be noted that an individual's medical predicament is an equally integral aspect which could encompass the decision to engage in labor among elderly individuals. Above all, the constraint on accessing financial assistance following retirement would most certainly push elderly individuals to work. Findings have shown that the number of employees that paid retirement benefits in Mexico were comparatively small in comparison to other nations, which could also reflect why the elderly individual residing in that country remain in the labor force for substantially longer period. For Malaysia, as another nation having non-universal social security programs with employees' provident funds in addition to government pensions that are mainly offered to employees throughout the formal and government sectors, individuals experiencing economic hardship, financial instability, lack of or inadequate pension were more likely to participate in the labor market. One thing to consider, economists have hesitated to become particularly engaged with the subject of culture and its relevance to the development of economics and its growth for a range of factors. Malaysia, a nation rich of cultural diversity and heritage, may hold a significant and, for the most part, Sabah is peculiar due to its industrial development in relation to its unique economic history. There is a widespread unanimity that culture may have served as an influence in directing a population forward in a selective direction. As such, cultures that emphasize individual duties whilst also ensuring the equitable opportunity for individuals are highly capable of promoting long-term economic development and growth. To come to a point, the inclination of Malaysian elderly individuals to participate in labor is a direct consequence of both productive aging culture and monetary orientation. On the final note, again, this presentation stands as a preliminary insight of the labor participation factors among the aging population in Malaysia with attention to Kota Kinabalu, Sabah. Recognizing that Malaysia is expected to transition into an aged nation by 2030, there is an urgent need to facilitate the increasing number of aging population and expedient and constructive consideration. With regard to the elderly individual who have been mentally and physically driven and capable, participating in labor has been shown to be one of the viable long-term alternatives. Further readings and references for this presentation will be displayed at the end. That is all from me. Have a great day. Assalamualaikum.